2 years ago, I attended a big conference in the US on international politics. I was in a panel dealing with war and emotions. And for my panel presentation, I had a crazy idea. In my hand luggage, I carried a small sound system and a microphone. And my plan was, instead of giving the usual talk, I would sing 2 of my songs. One, about the disappearance of ordinary people in wartime Chechnya, and another, about a deaf boy escaping the war zone. But it didn't go quite the way I planned, because somewhere in the middle of the second song, I noticed people standing by the panel room doorway. They had come there because I was being too loud, disturbing the other panels. I was already feeling anxious to be singing in a conference, but now my performance was being disturbed. And I had to make a decision really fast, either to stop singing or to continue. But I had come all the way from Finland, and I would not be silenced. So I made a joke in between, and I continued to the end. But I don't think it was just a combination of the decibel levels and the thin walls which made my singing inappropriate for some. I believe it was the challenge I posed to traditional academic ways of being and doing, the emotionless, motionless, serious scholar. For bodies to be categorized and stabilized, they need to be stilled. And singing unstills the researcher's body. It resituates it and redefines it. I now call this approach of mine musistance, musical resistance. And for me, resistance means doing it different in my work. I have made singing and songwriting an actual practice of research, and I thought this can touch and move people. The songs I have written draw from my research on the wars in Chechnya. They are a means to emotional engagement and a means to encounter a world you might not normally see. Musistance is a form of storytelling which makes passion and sensibility central to producing insight. And musistance is based on the fact that we are musical beings. Human beings have a special musical memory and the capacity to perceive music and its nuances. Moreover, musical experience is emotional, it's visceral, it's muscular. Everyone can experience music. Even the most profoundly deaf can sense various sorts of noises and vibrations. Music is powerful because it's affective, it's carnal knowledge, it's expressing things which cannot be said. Music is powerful because it gets you right down to your soul. So no wonder music has been used for political ordering and disordering, for propaganda, for national revival, for boosting the morale of military troops and hope of civilians in wartime, and resistance. Music, like art in general, is a force totalitarian regimes have both taken advantage of and been afraid of, banning and censoring music. War is also a sonic experience, which is why I was so intrigued by the deaf boy I made the song about. He couldn't hear the bombings, and that made him less afraid. I also learned from a Chechen man I interviewed that Chechen dance and music are forms of resistance. They give life force and a sense of freedom. But when I began my research on the wars in Chechnya, I faced a dilemma. Academic writing is ill-suited for the intensity and intimacy of the stories from a war zone. Academic writing is emotionless, but war is all about emotions. Then how to write about emotion without emotion? It didn't make sense to me. In my frustration, I found a different shape intuitively. Music started happening in me. I was transformed as a researcher and as a human being, I began thinking through sound, feeling through music, and researching with emotion. I became mindful of the inner metronome, and I realized this is not even a new methodology. We are doing it already, thinking through the flesh, sensing the world corporeally. The body knows, and the body remembers. This is why the resistance. It's resistance to the binaries of the mind and body, knowledge and emotion, which still persist. Singing challenges the rationalist, disembodied model of knowing. Music speaks and communicates directly to the body, giving and exchanging something lasting and profound. But I wasn't a trained musician. In fact, still 3 years ago, I hated my voice, and that took me to a vocal coach. I thought I could learn to speak with a more confident voice. But my singing teacher asked me to sing. Let's try, she said. And I tried, and I found my voice. I carried a lot of shame, but I walked through it. From shame to singing, from shame to songwriting, and from shame to performing. Singing is an act of vulnerability. The singer is vulnerable, but the listener is vulnerable as well. And vulnerability, I believe, is a space where something new can emerge. It's a space of resistance and compassion. The story about the conference I shared earlier in this talk, I want to return to something meaningful which happened right before I took the stage. An exchange of vulnerability. I was so nervous, shaking. I'm shaking a bit now as well. I was about to potentially make a fool out of myself by singing in a conference. But my vulnerability triggered something. A female scholar was seated next to me. She was one of the panel speakers, and we hadn't met before. And she asked me, "Why are you so nervous?" And I said, "I'm going to sing." She looked at me and said, "You know what? I'm going to change my presentation to support me." And she went for a personal story instead of the talk she had planned. But that's not all. While we waited for our turn, she grabbed my hand and held it. That act of kindness, the physicality of the act, the touching of skin and the transmission of warmth, holding the hand of a stranger in the middle of a conference panel in front of everyone, has helped me to become even bolder. Because when my hand was being held, I was being told, "I got you, and you'll do great." The hand told me that. The hand kept feeding me the message of confidence. I touched, and I was touched by, and that led to a connection. Art creates connections, and MUSISTANCE is a collective effort, together with the musicians, together with the listener. And finally, well, not finally, there's one more point. MUSISTANCE is not only meant for the academic audience. It's a way to reach out from that exclusive circle. So I have performed in various public events. For example, in a protest in London against one of the world's biggest arms fairs, displaying guns and drones and tanks and so forth. And there, a bypasser shouted to us academics, activists, "Get a job!" And we laughed. This was the job. This was my job. I knew I had found my way of speaking out. And now, finally, I want to encourage you in paying attention to the insight inherent in the body transmitting emotions through such acts as holding a hand. I want to implant the idea that there's always the possibility to think different and to do different. I believe you can find capacities you didn't know existed when you take the risk and explore different shapes and forms. You can practice musistance by the radical act of slowing down and stopping to listen to yourself and to listen to others. Curiously, musistance comes from silence in this noisy world. And then find your own path and follow that path regardless what others think and say. Search from your soul and write with your body. And this song is called Lie. Forget-me-not objects rising from beneath, sharing stories of lived lives of people, handcuffed to the trees. The spirits pled for mercy and their numb and their regret, brought rejoicing to the full when they still had the chance, when they still had the chance. But you know they played music very loud, and I know how they play to the night, how they play to the night. It's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't, it's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't. It's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't, it's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't. It's a lie to say they're dead when born to the painful, 'cause items from beneath are not those of the Neverland. Real people held hands, they painted the walls, they cried out loud, they cried out loud. It's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't, it's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't. It's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't, it's a lie to say I don't, it's a lie to say I won't. One last time, floating in the air, catch them stories, read them aloud, and hold them dear, and hold them dear. Thank you, Timo Kalevfors.